In today's digital world, communication has become faster, easier, and more constant than ever before. A simple message, a quick reply, or even a short reaction can make us feel connected to someone instantly. Because of this, silence stands out more than ever. When someone who once used to message regularly suddenly disappears for days, weeks, or even longer, it naturally triggers confusion, doubt, and emotional discomfort. We begin to ask ourselves questions like, did I do something wrong? Have they lost interest? Are they upset with me? Are they just busy? The truth is, silence in communication is rarely meaningless. It often carries hidden reasons, unspoken emotions, or changing priorities. However, the mistake many people make is assuming only one explanation, usually the most negative one. This leads to overthinking, unnecessary anxiety, and emotional stress. Understanding the possible reasons behind someone's absence can help you respond with clarity instead of fear. It is important to remember that people communicate differently. Some are naturally expressive and consistent, while others withdraw when life becomes overwhelming. External pressures, emotional struggles, personal growth, or shifting priorities can all influence how often someone reaches out. Silence does not always mean rejection, just as frequent messaging does not always guarantee emotional connection. At the same time, ignoring patterns can be just as harmful as overanalyzing them. While patience and understanding are important, so is self-respect. When communication becomes one-sided or consistently lacking, it forces us to reflect on where we truly stand in someone's life. Silence can sometimes be a pause, but other times, it is a message asking us to pay attention. This topic matters because almost everyone has experienced it at some point. Whether it is a friend, a romantic interest, a partner, or even a family member, the absence of communication can deeply affect our emotions. We attach meaning to messages, timing, and replies because they make us feel valued, remembered, and emotionally secure. By understanding the common reasons why someone may not message for a long time, you can gain emotional clarity instead of jumping to conclusions. This awareness allows you to respond wisely, protect your peace, and maintain healthy boundaries. Rather than chasing answers or blaming yourself, you learn to read situations with emotional intelligence. In the following points, we will explore 5 realistic and common meanings behind prolonged silence. Each reason offers a different perspective, helping you see the situation more clearly and decide how to move forward with confidence, maturity, and self-worth. Because sometimes, understanding the silence is more powerful than breaking it. 1. They are busy with personal or professional commitments. When someone doesn't message you for a long time, one of the most common and realistic reasons is that they are genuinely busy with personal or professional commitments. Life often becomes demanding, and communication, even with people we care about, can unintentionally take a back seat. This does not always mean they have lost interest or forgotten about you. In many cases, it simply reflects the pressure they are under. Professional commitments can be especially consuming. A person might be dealing with increased workload, strict deadlines, long working hours, job transitions, or career-related stress. When someone is focused on meeting expectations at work or trying to secure their future, their mental energy is often fully occupied. Messaging, replying thoughtfully, or holding conversations may feel like an additional task rather than a source of relaxation, even if they enjoy talking to you. Personal responsibilities can be just as overwhelming. Family issues, health concerns, financial stress, or personal goals such as studies, fitness, or self-improvement can require deep focus. During such times, people often prioritize what feels most urgent or essential. Communication may be reduced not because it is unimportant, but because they feel they cannot give it the attention it deserves. Another factor is emotional bandwidth. When someone is mentally exhausted, they may withdraw socially without realizing it. Even sending a simple message can feel draining if they are emotionally overloaded. Some people prefer to handle their challenges privately and avoid conversations until they feel more balanced and in control again. It is also important to understand that everyone manages busyness differently. Some people are excellent multitaskers and stay connected no matter how hectic life gets. Others cope by temporarily cutting down on social interaction. Their silence is not necessarily a reflection of how they feel about you, but rather how they deal with stress and responsibility. Misinterpreting this silence can lead to unnecessary overthinking, self-doubt, or emotional distance. Instead of assuming the worst, it helps to consider the context of their life. Have they mentioned being busy before? Are they going through a demanding phase? If the answer is yes, the lack of messaging is likely situational rather than personal. In such situations, patience and understanding are key. Giving them space while keeping the door open for communication shows emotional maturity. A simple, supportive message without pressure can sometimes mean more than constant follow-ups. Ultimately, being busy does not mean they do not care. It often means they are trying to manage life the best way they know how. 2. They need emotional or mental space. When someone doesn't message you for a long time, another important reason could be that they need emotional or mental space. This is not always a negative sign, even though it can feel confusing or hurtful from the outside. Many people pull back from communication when they are trying to process their thoughts, emotions, or personal struggles. Emotional overload is a common cause of this behavior. A person might be dealing with stress, anxiety, disappointment, heartbreak, or internal conflict that they do not know how to express. Instead of talking about it, they choose silence as a way to protect themselves or avoid saying something they might regret. For them, distance feels safer than conversation. Some individuals naturally recharge by being alone. When life becomes overwhelming, they retreat inward to regain clarity and balance. This does not mean they do not value their relationships. It simply means they need time to reconnect with themselves before engaging with others. Messaging during this phase may feel emotionally demanding, even if the conversation is supportive. Mental space is also needed during periods of self-reflection. A person might be questioning their life choices, relationships, or future direction. During such times, communication can feel distracting. They may want to sort out their feelings privately before opening up to anyone else. Silence becomes a way to think clearly without outside influence. It is important to understand that needing space is not the same as rejecting someone. Often, the silence has nothing to do with you personally. The person may still care deeply but feels unable to show up emotionally at the moment. Unfortunately, they may not always communicate this need clearly, which leads to misunderstanding and overthinking on the other side. Respecting someone's need for space can actually strengthen the connection. Pressuring them to respond or demanding explanations may increase their stress and push them further away. On the other hand, allowing them time while showing quiet support demonstrates emotional intelligence and trust. A healthy response is to acknowledge their absence without resentment. If you do reach out, keeping the message light and understanding helps maintain emotional safety. When they are ready, they are more likely to return with clarity and appreciation. In many cases, once a person has had the space they need, communication resumes naturally and often becomes more meaningful. Silence, in this context, is not an ending. It is a pause for emotional recovery and self-alignment, which can ultimately lead to stronger and more honest connections. 3. Their priorities have shifted. When someone doesn't message you for a long time, it can also mean that their priorities have shifted. Life is constantly changing, and as people grow, their focus often moves from one area to another. This shift is not always intentional or personal, but it can strongly affect how much time and attention they give to communication. A change in priorities often happens during major life transitions. Starting a new job, entering a serious relationship, focusing on studies, building a business, or dealing with family responsibilities can all demand more emotional and mental investment. As a result, the person may unintentionally reduce contact with people who were once a regular part of their daily conversations. Sometimes, priorities shift internally rather than externally. A person may decide to focus more on self-growth, healing, or personal goals. During this phase, social interactions may feel less important compared to their need for structure, discipline, or inner peace. Messaging becomes occasional because it no longer sits at the top of their mental to-do list. This does not always mean they no longer care. Often, it simply means they are reorganizing their life and energy. However, it is also true that priorities reflect values. If someone consistently places other things above staying in touch, it can signal that the connection is no longer as central to them as it once was. This realization can be difficult, but it provides clarity. Another reason priorities change is emotional investment elsewhere. When someone becomes deeply involved in another relationship or responsibility, their attention naturally shifts. They may not consciously decide to distance themselves. It happens gradually as their focus is redirected. It is important not to take this shift as an immediate rejection. Instead, observe patterns over time. Occasional busyness is normal, but a long-term change in communication often mirrors a long-term change in priority. Understanding this helps manage expectations and avoid unnecessary emotional strain. Responding with awareness rather than frustration is crucial. If you feel the connection fading, you can choose to communicate openly or adjust your own priorities accordingly. Healthy relationships evolve with mutual effort and attention. Ultimately, when priorities shift, it teaches an important lesson about balance and self-worth. You deserve consistent effort and presence. Recognizing where you stand in someone's life allows you to decide how much energy to continue investing, ensuring emotional stability and mutual respect. 4. They expect you to reach out first. When someone doesn't message you for a long time, it may be because they expect you to reach out first. This situation often has less to do with disinterest and more to do with communication dynamics, personal insecurities, or unspoken expectations within the relationship. Some people hesitate to initiate conversations because they fear rejection or appearing needy. They may worry that texting first could disturb you or make them seem too eager. As a result, they choose to stay silent, hoping you will take the first step and confirm that you still want to talk to them. In other cases, this behavior is shaped by past experiences. A person who has previously felt ignored, undervalued, or taken for granted may stop initiating communication as a form of emotional self-protection. They wait to see whether the other person makes an effort, using silence as a way to measure interest and priority. There are also individuals who believe communication should be balanced and reciprocal. If they feel they have been the one reaching out more often, they might intentionally step back to see if you will do the same. This pause is not meant to punish, but to restore what they perceive as emotional fairness. Cultural norms and personality traits can also play a role. Some people are naturally passive communicators and feel more comfortable responding rather than initiating. They may enjoy conversations but rarely start them, assuming that if you want to talk, you will message first. However, this expectation can lead to misunderstandings. When both people wait for the other to initiate, silence grows, and assumptions replace clarity. Each person may think the other has lost interest, when in reality, both are simply waiting. The healthiest way to handle this situation is awareness and honesty. If you value the connection, reaching out with a simple message can break the cycle of silence. Sometimes, one small step is all it takes to reopen communication. At the same time, it is important to notice patterns. If you are always the one initiating and the effort is not returned, it may indicate an imbalance. Healthy relationships thrive on mutual effort, not silent tests. Ultimately, expecting someone else to message first is often rooted in fear, uncertainty, or habit rather than lack of care. Understanding this can help you respond with clarity, confidence, and emotional maturity. 5. They may be losing interest or creating distance. When someone doesn't message you for a long time, one possible meaning is that they may be losing interest or intentionally creating emotional distance. This is often the hardest reason to accept, but it is an important one to acknowledge honestly. Not all silence is accidental. Sometimes, it reflects a gradual change in feelings or intentions. Loss of interest rarely happens suddenly. It usually shows up through subtle shifts in behavior. Replies become shorter, conversations feel forced, response times increase, and emotional engagement fades. Eventually, communication may stop altogether. In many cases, the person does not openly express their change in feelings because they want to avoid conflict, guilt, or uncomfortable conversations. Some people distance themselves instead of being direct. They may believe silence is a kinder or easier way to let a connection fade. While this approach avoids confrontation for them, it often leaves the other person confused, overthinking, and emotionally unsettled. Unfortunately, avoidance is a common coping mechanism for those who struggle with honest communication. Another reason for distancing can be emotional uncertainty. A person might feel unsure about what they want or where the relationship is heading. Rather than addressing these doubts openly, they pull back to create space. This distance helps them gain clarity but can feel like rejection to the person on the receiving end. In some situations, a new interest or relationship takes priority. When emotional energy is invested elsewhere, previous connections may receive less attention. The silence is not always meant to hurt, but it reflects where their focus and emotions are now directed. It is important to pay attention to consistency rather than isolated moments. Everyone gets busy or needs space occasionally, but when long gaps in communication become a pattern without explanation or effort to reconnect, it often signals emotional withdrawal. Words matter, but actions reveal the truth more clearly. Responding to this situation requires self-respect and awareness. Chasing someone who is emotionally pulling away can lead to imbalance and emotional exhaustion. Instead, observe their effort and match it. If communication feels one-sided, it may be time to step back and reassess your expectations. Accepting that someone may be losing interest does not mean blaming yourself. People change, feelings evolve, and not every connection is meant to last. What matters most is recognizing when your emotional needs are no longer being met. Ultimately, silence can be a message in itself. While it may not provide closure, it offers clarity. Choosing to honor your worth and emotional well-being is always more important than waiting for someone who is no longer fully present.